The following program is being brought to you by Rain of Fire Radio, a media outreach arm of Rain of Fire Evangelical Ministries. Our commitment is to sponsor programs that will assist in living a Christian life and win others through teaching the finished work of Jesus Christ. Welcome to Delivered or Deceived with your host, Rand Berkey. Rand is a former cult member who now educates people on the dangers of these types of groups, as well as people who would seek to exploit and terrorize others. Rand has devoted his life to providing assistance to those who have been hurt. No one wants to be led through the wilderness by a guide who has never been there. He has, and his desire is that you will find yourself delivered and not deceived.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rand Berkey. Welcome to Rain of Fire Christian Radio, sponsored by Rain of Fire Evangelical Ministries. I'd like to share a foundational scripture of our organization. In Luke 14:17 through 19, it states, "And Jesus was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found a place where it was written, 'The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, proclaim liberty to the captives, and recover his sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord.'" Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going through our book, my book, Delivered from Deception. We're on chapter 13, which is Shopping for Paradise. And the quote I have is from Matthew Henry. "There are none as blind as those who will not see." Now, I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but hey, that happened to in Ray Stevens' Everything is Beautiful. For those of us who remembers Ray Stevens, he's the one that did The Streak. Anyway, what we're going through is now I have come full circle from the time that I was deprogrammed, picked up and deprogrammed through my time in the Way International and my exit, and having to consider all the things that happened to me in those 6 years. I'd like to read through this, and then there's chapter 14 and 15, which I'm going to put together because they're short chapters. But Shopping for Paradise is probably one of the most important chapters in this book. But what I would suggest is grab 1 through 14 of the broadcast. The first broadcast was a forerunner of the book, and now we're getting into chapter 13. So without further ado, the path to enlightenment, whether it is spiritual, political, or psychological, is fraught with perils and pitfalls. One only need look at the history of destruction extremist groups have left in their wake to supply evidence for that fact. Above Jim Jones' throne, where he presided over the mass suicide of 913 people in the People's Temple in Guyana in November 1978, was a quotation that should be an object lesson for the world. It read, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." The words were a prophecy of sorts that have played out in the Oklahoma City bombing, Waco, Texas, the suicides of the sci-fi group, who were going to travel in spaceships behind Halley's Comet, the destruction of the World Trade Center, and the terrorist activities in general that have besieged the world up to just today. These are prime examples of extremism gone mad. If we look into the structure of these different groups, we can better understand their state of mind. The defining factors are these people believe, without a doubt, they have been called to the truth, and they have been chosen to make others aware of it by any means available. They were hand-picked to testify and to die for it. I was on what I believe that path to enlightenment, willing to sacrifice my life and the lives of others to attain paradise. How then do we find meaning in life that is satisfying and yet not become pawns to others who would use us to advance their own power and financial omnipotence. I hope this chapter helps those who do not understand. How people can be trapped in abusive situations and avoid becoming unwary victims themselves, and help those who have been snared learn how they can reclaim their lives. Why did I name this chapter Shopping for Paradise? The answer is evident. There are a multitude of different causes and truths from which to choose. People are searching for solutions and explanations to their personal problems, as well as cures for their worldwide issues of war, famine, global environmental destruction, oppression, disease, and the general corruption of society, morals, and values. The search boils down to one word: security. We want to feel secure in our homes, our community, our society, our relationships, and in our futures. Those whom I have seen are the most vulnerable, are the Pied Pipers. Those whom I've seen are the most vulnerable to the Pied Pipers are the ones whose sense of security has been disrupted. And everyone has had their security disrupted at one time or another. Everyone is vulnerable to some form of manipulation, and everyone has at one time or another fallen prey to it. With the advent of electronic media, we have also been overwhelmed with information we must sort through in order to make sound decisions. Whether it's in the most ordinary form of advertising or in the extreme threats of our extinction, we are faced with making life-changing decisions based on information that has been provided to us by others. This is the crux of the issue. Unless we have all done our own research, scientific tests, and blind studies, we must trust the information provided to us by others. This includes everything from what vehicle to purchase down to what brand of toilet paper we should use. This holds true with everything we encounter in life. To a certain degree, we trust what the manufacturer states about the product. If it sounds convincing enough, we may try the product. If the product performs as promised, we may continue to use it until something better is invented or something flashier catches our attention. But in a cult, there's no opportunity of any form of reality. The key issue is trust. We live our lives by a certain amount of trust. We trust that while driving down the road, other drivers will obey the traffic laws, not crossing over the center line or go through stoplights or red lights without stopping. We trust that food items sold on our shelves will not harm us. We trust that doctors have our ultimate good in their interest and want us to get better. You will assume that experiences I have stated in this book are true. I should be able to be believed to have accurately portrayed what I've been through, as well as what the group believes and teaches. If my experiences have been accurately presented, you should be able to apply the understanding you have received in other situations. If not, in time you will find that it was wrong and will no longer trust what I write. To hold your trust and interest in this book, or any others I will write, I have the responsibility and the stake of being accurate. If I change things, I must inform the reader. Yet the bottom line is I must value being honest and truthful. The extent I value honesty, my concerns for another's well-being, and what people think of me is the measure of how much you can trust what I write. These statements need to be made because I feel the need to put what I state into the same standard of accountability, as I will put what happens with any cult's practices and doctrines. How can I otherwise expect anyone to regard or respect what I write if I am a hypocrite? When it comes to finding the path to paradise, we must look at the doctrine provided by any group to see if it's consistent and accurate. This means looking at all sides of a particular issue. People in particular group becomes agitated by questions or negative information about their beliefs or practices. This is something to watch closely. Another sign of something is amiss is if members are secretive or vague when answering questions about the group and what they believe. What one may find is that there are different levels of information until fully indoctrinated at one level. A recruit will not be exposed to the next level of information. Unlike groups that do not manipulate information, cults cannot stand close inspection. To the leaders of these groups, truth is relative to their goals and may be manipulated in order to serve their purposes, whatever they are. They devise their own reality to which anyone that follows them must become subject. When one subjects themselves to their reality, the only way to continue to live in this reality is to accept all of its truths while ignoring evidence that may contradict the beliefs of the leader and group. I wrote of security before. The groups and their leaders offer security. They prey on our vulnerabilities and are expert at finding them out. I will give a scenario of how this is done. This type of con is not new. As I break it down, you'll begin to see the steps are similar to becoming involved in a cult. A couple comes to the door of an elderly person. One is dressed as a police officer and the other like an official from a bank in which the person has their account. These people have come to serve notice that there has been problems at this bank, and they need the person's help. The individual is told there is someone embezzling funds from the bank. The visitors are concerned this person's funds may be targeted, and they request help in catching the thieves. They instruct the victim to withdraw the funds from the bank and give the money to the police officer. A receipt for the amount will be given to the victim to guarantee the person will get their money back. The victim is told this investigation is very confidential and it must be kept secret. If the wrong person is told, the entire operation will be in jeopardy and the thieves will escape with the money already embezzled. No one is to be trusted. The victim, not wanting to lose any money and feeling a duty to help these people catch the embezzlers, complies. The money is withdrawn and the cash is given to the officer. A receipt is given and the two leave, never to be heard from again. The victim is left penniless, angry, and taken advantage of, blaming him or herself for not being aware or wise enough to have questioned or looked into this situation further. The cons used and the threat of lost money to intimidate the victim into doing what they wanted. They also used the noble impulse of the victim's desire to help elicit compliance. Cult recruiters look for any opportunity to exploit the vulnerabilities of the people they are recruiting. Where there does not seem to be any need, they will try to invent it. For example, the PFL green card. It was used as a tool to get inside a person's head in order to find out what meant the most to a person. The cons do not pose as just anyone. They came as authority figures, which are more likely to be trusted. The leaders and others in cults come with the same air of authority. They have a doctor in front of their name, show their credentials, wear the proper attire, say all the right things, and show a miracle or two in order to stake a claim that they and their alone are God's anointed. They do what needs to be done in order to make the victims believe what they are saying is true. The most difficult part of all of this to comprehend is that anyone would actually go to this extent to make an impression of being something